Become a People Magnet. Master the Hidden Psychology of Social Attraction. Published by Audiobook Academy. Introduction. Human beings are naturally drawn towards certain people, not always the loudest person in the room, not always the most attractive, wealthy, or successful either. Some individuals simply carry a presence that makes others feel comfortable, valued, understood, and emotionally connected. Conversations flow naturally around them. People trust them quickly. Their energy feels calm instead of forced, and without chasing attention desperately, they somehow attract it effortlessly. Social attraction is far deeper than appearance or popularity. It is psychological, emotional, behavioral. The way you make people feel often matters more than the words you say. Confidence, warmth, emotional control, listening skills, body language, authenticity, and energy all quietly shape how others respond to you. This is why two people can enter the same room and create completely different emotional reactions without saying very much at all. In this audiobook, we will explore the hidden psychology behind social attraction and human connection. You will learn why certain behaviors naturally draw people in, while others quietly push them away. You will discover how emotional security creates confidence, why listening is one of the strongest forms of charisma, and how calmness, authenticity, and presence can transform the way people experience you. Real social magnetism never comes from acting perfect or impressing everyone around you. It comes from becoming emotionally grounded, genuinely interested in people, and fully comfortable with yourself. When that happens, conversations become easier, relationships become stronger, and your presence begins carrying a different kind of energy. The goal is not to become the loudest person in the room. The goal is to become someone people naturally feel drawn toward, because your presence makes them feel understood, respected, and emotionally safe. Chapter 1. Stop trying to impress people. One of the biggest mistakes people make in social situations is trying too hard to be liked. The moment you begin performing for approval, your natural presence starts disappearing. Conversations become forced. Confidence weakens. You begin carefully monitoring every word, every reaction, and every expression, hoping people will see you as impressive, intelligent, attractive, or successful. Ironically, the harder someone tries to impress others, the more emotionally tense and disconnected they often become. People are naturally drawn toward emotional comfort, not performance. They feel more connected to someone who appears relaxed and genuine than someone who constantly tries to prove their worth. This is because human beings can sense emotional pressure very quickly. When a person desperately wants validation, approval, or admiration, that emotional need quietly changes the energy of every interaction. Instead of creating connection, it creates tension. This is why some individuals walk into a room and immediately attract attention without appearing to try very hard. They are comfortable with themselves. They are not desperately seeking approval from everyone around them. Their calmness creates ease in other people, because emotional security is naturally attractive. Nathan Cole learned this lesson during one of the most frustrating periods of his social life. He was a junior architect living in Denver, intelligent and ambitious but deeply insecure around people he wanted to impress. During networking events, dates, and even casual conversations, Nathan constantly felt pressure to appear more successful, more interesting, and more confident than he actually felt inside. Whenever conversations began, his mind immediately started working overtime. He carefully chose words to sound smarter. He exaggerated achievements slightly to seem more accomplished. He laughed too quickly at jokes. He constantly tried to say impressive things because he feared being seen as ordinary. After social events, Nathan replayed conversations repeatedly in his head. He worried about whether people liked him, whether he sounded awkward, or whether he had said the wrong thing. Social interactions became emotionally exhausting because he treated every conversation like a performance that needed to succeed. One evening at a professional gathering, Nathan noticed another architect speaking with a small group nearby. The man was calm, relaxed, and confident, without dominating the conversation. He was not trying to impress anyone aggressively, yet people naturally seemed drawn toward him. They listened closely when he spoke. They laughed comfortably around him. His presence felt effortless. What struck Nathan most was not the man's appearance or status, it was his emotional ease. He had spent so much time trying to appear impressive that he rarely allowed people to meet the real version of him. Slowly, he began changing his approach to social situations. Instead of trying to impress people immediately, he focused on simply being present. He stopped exaggerating stories. He stopped trying to sound perfect. During conversations, he paid more attention to the other person instead of constantly monitoring himself. At first, this felt terrifying because approval had always felt emotionally necessary to him. But over time, something surprising happened. Conversations became easier. People responded more warmly to him. He laughed more naturally. His confidence slowly became genuine because it was no longer built on performance. Trying too hard to impress others often creates emotional distance because people sense when someone is seeking validation instead of genuine connection. Real confidence feels calm because it does not constantly ask for approval. It allows a person to relax into conversations instead of treating every interaction like an evaluation. Healthy confidence still values good communication, emotional intelligence, and self-improvement. But there is a major difference between presenting your best self and desperately trying to earn worth through approval. The more comfortable you become with yourself, the less pressure you place on social interactions, and that emotional ease becomes magnetic. People feel safer around individuals who are emotionally relaxed because calmness creates comfort. Social attraction is not built by pretending to be extraordinary all the time. In many cases, it grows through simple emotional honesty. Being fully present, listening sincerely, speaking naturally, allowing yourself to be human, instead of constantly trying to appear perfect. Because at the end of the day, people rarely feel deeply connected to someone who constantly performs for approval. They feel connected to someone who feels real. Chapter 2. Make people feel seen and valued. One of the deepest human desires is the desire to feel important, not superior, not worshipped, simply seen, understood, acknowledged. People want to feel that their thoughts matter, their emotions matter, and their presence matters. This is why some conversations leave a lasting emotional impact, while others are forgotten almost immediately. The difference is rarely intelligence or charm alone. It is emotional attention. Many people enter conversations focused mainly on themselves. They think about how they sound, what they should say next, or how they are being perceived. As a result, they listen only partially. Their attention constantly shifts back toward themselves, instead of fully toward the other person. But socially magnetic people do something different. They make others feel emotionally visible. This ability creates powerful attraction because genuine attention has become increasingly rare. In a distracted world, being fully present with another person feels deeply meaningful. Most people are used to half listening, interrupted conversations, distracted eye contact, and interactions filled with divided attention. So when someone truly listens, remembers details, asks thoughtful questions, and responds with genuine interest, it creates an emotional experience people naturally want more of. She was a hotel manager in Miami, highly organized and professionally successful, but socially she often felt disconnected from people. Conversations remained polite but shallow. Friendships rarely deepened. Even during dates or social gatherings, she felt like something important was missing. At first, Victoria assumed she simply lacked charisma. She watched naturally outgoing people easily attract attention, while she struggled to create strong emotional connections. But over time, she noticed something interesting about the people others seemed most drawn toward. They were not always the funniest or most impressive individuals in the room. Often they were simply the people who made others feel comfortable, heard, and emotionally important. One evening during a leadership conference, Victoria met an older business consultant named Richard. Their conversation lasted less than 20 minutes, but afterward she could not stop thinking about it. Richard asked thoughtful questions, listened carefully without interrupting, maintained calm eye contact, and responded with genuine curiosity. He did not constantly redirect the conversation back to himself. He made her feel fully present in the moment. Driving home later that evening, Victoria realized something surprising. She barely remembered what Richard had said about himself, yet she distinctly remembered how valued she felt during the conversation. That realization changed the way she approached people. Instead of trying to appear more interesting socially, Victoria began focusing on making others feel important. During conversations, she listened more carefully, instead of mentally preparing responses. She paid attention to details people mentioned and remembered them later. She asked deeper questions instead of staying trapped in surface-level small talk. Slowly, her relationships began changing. Co-workers opened up to her more naturally. Friendships became emotionally stronger. Conversations felt warmer and more meaningful because people sensed her genuine attention. What surprised her most was that the less she focused on impressing others, the more socially attractive she became. This is one of the hidden truths about human connection. People may forget exact words, but they rarely forget how someone made them feel emotionally. Making people feel valued does not require manipulation or exaggerated compliments. In fact, forced praise often feels emotionally dishonest. Real connection comes from sincere attention, listening carefully, respecting someone's thoughts, remembering what matters to them, giving them space to speak without rushing to dominate the conversation. The reason this creates attraction is psychological. When people feel emotionally safe and valued around someone, the brain begins associating that person with positive emotional experiences. Trust increases, comfort grows, emotional walls slowly lower, genuine connection begins forming naturally. Many individuals believe social magnetism comes from constantly entertaining people or saying impressive things, but emotional warmth often matters far more than performance. Calm attention creates stronger connection than endless self-promotion ever will. This also requires slowing down internally. A distracted mind struggles to fully connect with people because its attention constantly shifts elsewhere. Socially magnetic individuals are often emotionally present. They are not constantly checking phones, scanning rooms for someone more important, or mentally rehearsing what to say next. Their presence feels focused, and that focus itself feels valuable. Simple gestures carry enormous emotional weight. Remembering someone's name, asking about something important they mentioned previously, listening without interrupting, responding thoughtfully instead of automatically. These behaviors may appear ordinary, but emotionally they are powerful because they communicate respect and care. At the deepest level, people are drawn toward those who make them feel understood instead of invisible. And in a world where many individuals feel overlooked, rushed, or emotionally disconnected, genuine attention becomes one of the rarest and most attractive qualities a person can possess. Chapter 3. Speak calmly and carry strong presence. The way you speak affects people far more than you may realize. Words matter, but emotional delivery matters just as much. Two people can say the exact same sentence and create completely different reactions depending on the energy behind their voice. One sounds nervous, rushed and uncertain. The other sounds calm, grounded, and emotionally steady. Human beings naturally respond to emotional signals before they fully process information logically, which is why calm communication creates such powerful social attraction. Many people weaken their presence without noticing it. They speak too quickly when nervous. They over-explain because they fear being misunderstood. They interrupt silence because quietness makes them uncomfortable. Some laugh nervously after every sentence. Others constantly seek reassurance while speaking. These small habits quietly communicate emotional tension, even when the person's words themselves sound confident. Calmness, however, creates a very different effect. A calm voice signals emotional control. It tells people that you are comfortable with yourself and emotionally stable under pressure. This naturally builds trust because emotionally grounded individuals make others feel more relaxed around them. Presence is not created through volume or dominance. It is created through emotional steadiness. Ethan Brooks struggled with this for years. He was a sales representative living in Chicago, intelligent and hardworking but deeply insecure during conversations with clients and co-workers. Whenever he became nervous, his speech sped up dramatically. He talked too much, over-explained details, and filled every moment of silence immediately because he feared appearing awkward or unprepared. After important meetings, Ethan often felt frustrated with himself. He knew he had valuable ideas, but his nervous communication weakened the impact of his words. Sometimes people interrupted him unintentionally because his speech lacked calm authority. Other times, he noticed clients losing attention because he overwhelmed conversations with too much anxious energy. One afternoon during a meeting with a senior executive, Ethan became especially aware of this problem. He had prepared carefully, yet the moment he started speaking, nervousness took over. His words rushed together, his breathing became shallow, and he kept over-explaining simple points unnecessarily. After the meeting ended, another colleague gave the same information more calmly and confidently in just a few sentences. The executive responded immediately, with interest and trust. That moment stayed with Ethan deeply. He realized the issue was not intelligence or knowledge. The issue was emotional presence. His anxiety was speaking louder than his actual message. Over the following months, Ethan began changing the way he communicated. Before conversations, he focused on slowing his breathing. Instead of mentally rehearsing perfect sentences, he practiced speaking more slowly and allowing pauses without panicking. Instead of trying to prove himself constantly, he focused on delivering thoughts clearly and calmly. At first, the silence between sentences felt uncomfortable because he feared people would judge him. But gradually something surprising happened. People listened more carefully when he spoke. Conversations felt smoother. Clients trusted him more naturally because his energy no longer felt rushed or emotionally desperate. Even his confidence began growing internally because calm communication changed the way he experienced himself socially. This is one of the hidden laws of social attraction. Emotional calmness creates influence. People trust individuals who appear emotionally grounded because calmness feels safe. A rushed person often creates subconscious tension in others, but someone who speaks clearly, pauses naturally, and remains emotionally steady creates a completely different atmosphere. Strong presence also comes from simplicity. Confident communicators rarely feel the need to overwhelm others with endless explanations. They trust their words enough to say less with greater clarity. Insecure communication often sounds crowded because it constantly seeks validation and reassurance. This does not mean speaking slowly in an unnatural way or trying to sound overly serious. Genuine calmness cannot be faked for very long. It grows from emotional self-trust. The more secure a person becomes internally, the more relaxed their communication naturally becomes. Silence also plays an important role in presence. Many people fear silence because they associate it with awkwardness, but emotionally grounded individuals understand that pauses create space. They allow conversations to breathe. They communicate confidence because the person does not feel pressured to constantly fill every moment with words. The strongest communicators are often the people who remain calm, even when situations become emotionally charged. They do not immediately react impulsively. They listen fully before responding. Their emotional steadiness creates respect because others sense they are in control of themselves. Presence is not about trying to dominate every room you enter. It is about carrying energy that feels emotionally centered. People remember how someone made them feel during conversations, and calmness leaves a powerful emotional impression. When your voice becomes calmer, your thoughts become clearer. When your communication becomes steadier, people naturally feel more comfortable around you. And over time, this quiet emotional strength becomes one of the most attractive qualities you can carry into any relationship or social situation. Chapter 4. Listen so deeply people feel understood. Very few people truly listen anymore. Many hear words, but their attention is somewhere else entirely. While another person is speaking, the mind often stays busy preparing responses, forming opinions, checking distractions, or waiting for a chance to speak again. As a result, conversations become shallow exchanges instead of meaningful human connection. People leave interactions feeling unheard, even when communication technically happened. Deep listening is rare because it requires something many people struggle to give fully: attention. Genuine listening means temporarily setting aside your own thoughts, judgments, and need to respond so you can fully understand another person's experience. This kind of attention creates powerful emotional connection because it makes people feel emotionally safe and respected. Human beings naturally move closer to those who make them feel understood, not analyzed, not judged. understood. This is why some conversations remain memorable for years, while others disappear from memory almost immediately. The emotional experience of feeling heard creates trust, warmth, and connection in ways people often underestimate. Rachel Morgan learned this during a difficult period in both her personal and professional life. She was a pediatric nurse living in Seattle, compassionate and hardworking but emotionally exhausted from constant stress. At work, she spent her days helping children and comforting anxious parents. Outside of work, however, her relationships often felt strained and disconnected. Rachel believed she was a good communicator because she cared deeply about people, but over time, friends and family members began subtly pulling away emotionally. Conversations felt rushed, misunderstandings increased. Even during serious discussions, people sometimes responded with frustration, saying things like, "You're not really hearing me." At first, Rachel felt defensive. She genuinely believed she was listening, but eventually she began noticing her own habits during conversations. While someone else spoke, her mind constantly prepared advice, solutions, or responses. If a person shared a problem, she immediately searched for ways to fix it, instead of fully understanding how they actually felt. Her attention remained partially divided between the other person and her own internal reactions. One evening after a disagreement with her younger brother, Rachel experienced a moment that changed her perspective completely. During the argument, her brother suddenly stopped talking and quietly said, "I don't need you to solve everything. I just want you to understand me." That sentence stayed with her for days. Gradually, Rachel began approaching conversations differently. Instead of rushing to respond, she focused on slowing down internally. She maintained eye contact more intentionally. She stopped interrupting people midway through their thoughts. Instead of immediately offering advice, she asked deeper questions and allowed silence to exist naturally in conversations. At first, this felt uncomfortable because she had spent years equating communication with solving problems quickly. But over time, something powerful happened. Her relationships became emotionally deeper. Friends opened up to her more naturally. Conversations felt calmer and more meaningful because people sensed her genuine presence instead of emotional impatience. This is one of the hidden powers of listening deeply. It makes people feel emotionally visible. Many individuals spend their lives craving this feeling without being able to fully describe it. They want someone who listens without rushing them, someone who pays attention without constantly checking distractions, someone who makes them feel like their emotions matter instead of becoming another problem to solve quickly. Deep listening also creates attraction because it reflects emotional confidence. Insecure people often dominate conversations because they constantly seek attention or validation. Emotionally grounded individuals, however, feel comfortable giving attention generously because their self-worth does not depend on constantly controlling interactions. Listening deeply requires emotional discipline. It means resisting the urge to interrupt with your own stories immediately. It means staying curious instead of assuming you already understand someone completely. It means being fully present instead of mentally drifting elsewhere while another person speaks. People can feel the difference between being half-heard and fully heard. One creates distance, the other creates connection. This does not mean remaining silent constantly or suppressing your personality. Meaningful conversations still involve sharing, honesty, humor, and emotional openness. But socially magnetic people understand balance. They know connection grows strongest when both individuals feel emotionally valued during interactions. In a distracted world, focused attention feels powerful. When you genuinely listen to someone, you communicate something important without needing dramatic words. You tell them, "You matter enough for me to slow down and fully pay attention." That emotional experience stays with people. The truth is simple but profound. Many individuals are not searching for perfect advice, impressive conversations, or flawless social skills. Deep down, they are searching for people who make them feel understood. And once someone experiences that kind of connection around you, they naturally begin feeling drawn toward your presence again and again. Chapter 5. Build confidence without showing off. True confidence rarely needs to announce itself loudly. It does not constantly seek attention, dominate conversations, or demand validation from everyone nearby. Real confidence feels calm, grounded, and emotionally steady. Insecure people often believe confidence means being the loudest voice in the room, always appearing impressive, or constantly proving their worth. But genuine confidence works differently. It creates comfort rather than pressure. Many people unintentionally confuse confidence with performance. They try to appear more successful, more attractive, more knowledgeable, or more important, because deep down they fear not being enough. This is why insecurity often becomes loud. It overcompensates. It seeks reassurance constantly. It wants approval to confirm value externally, because internally, certainty feels weak. Socially magnetic people usually carry a quieter kind of confidence. They do not desperately need every person to admire them. They are comfortable allowing others to shine during conversations. They do not constantly compete for attention because their sense of worth is not fragile. That emotional stability creates attraction because people naturally feel safer around individuals who are secure within themselves. Tyler Bennett spent years misunderstanding this completely. He was a fitness coach living in Austin, physically confident on the surface, but emotionally dependent on attention underneath. Social media had become a major part of his identity. He carefully managed his appearance, constantly posted for validation, and measured his confidence based on how much attention he received from others. In social settings, Tyler often exaggerated stories, interrupted conversations to redirect focus toward himself, and tried hard to appear impressive. At first, people noticed him easily because he was energetic and charismatic outwardly, but deeper relationships rarely lasted. Conversations often stayed shallow, and over time, people quietly became emotionally distant from him. What Tyler did not realize was that his need for attention created subtle emotional pressure around him. People sensed he constantly needed validation, even when he tried to hide it behind humor and confidence. One evening during a small gathering at a friend's apartment, Tyler met an older entrepreneur named Marcus. Unlike everyone else at the party, Marcus never tried to dominate conversations or impress people aggressively, yet almost everyone seemed naturally drawn toward him. He listened carefully, spoke calmly, laughed genuinely, and carried himself with quiet ease. Tyler watched him throughout the evening with curiosity. Marcus never competed for attention, but somehow attention moved toward him naturally. People respected him without him demanding it. Later that night, Tyler asked him directly, "How do you make people listen to you without even trying?" Marcus smiled and replied, "Because I stopped needing everyone to." That sentence stayed in Tyler's mind for weeks. For the first time, he began noticing how much of his behavior was driven by emotional insecurity instead of real confidence. He realized he constantly performed socially because he feared being ignored, overlooked, or seen as ordinary. His confidence depended too heavily on external reactions. Slowly, Tyler started changing his behavior. During conversations, he stopped trying to constantly prove himself. He became more comfortable, allowing silence naturally. He listened more instead of always trying to entertain. Online, he reduced the need to seek constant attention through validation and comparison. At first, this felt uncomfortable because much of his identity had been built around external approval. But gradually, something changed internally. He became calmer socially. He no longer felt pressured to impress every person he met. Ironically, people started responding to him more positively because his energy became more genuine and emotionally relaxed. This is one of the deepest truths about social attraction. Confidence becomes powerful when it no longer depends on constant recognition. People feel emotionally comfortable around grounded individuals because they are not carrying the exhausting pressure of needing validation all the time. Calm confidence allows conversations to feel natural instead of performative. It creates trust because emotionally secure people are usually more honest, more relaxed, and less manipulative socially. Showing off often pushes people away because it shifts attention toward proving worth instead of creating connection. Human beings naturally sense when someone is trying too hard to appear impressive, but quiet confidence creates curiosity because it feels authentic. This does not mean hiding achievements or pretending to be smaller than you are. Healthy confidence still acknowledges strengths and accomplishments. The difference is emotional dependence. Confident people enjoy appreciation, but they do not emotionally collapse without it. It grows when a person becomes comfortable with who they are, even when validation is uncertain. That emotional security changes body language, communication, eye contact, and social presence naturally. You no longer enter rooms trying desperately to be noticed. You simply arrive as yourself, and strangely enough, that is often when people begin noticing you the most. Chapter 6. Use body language that attracts trust. Long before people fully process your words, they respond to your presence, the way you stand, move, look at others, and carry yourself emotionally, sends signals constantly, even in complete silence. Human beings are naturally wired to read body language because emotional energy is often communicated non-verbally before a single sentence is spoken. This is why someone can appear warm and trustworthy immediately, while another person can unintentionally create distance without understanding why. Body language reveals emotional state. A tense posture often reflects internal anxiety. Avoiding eye contact may communicate discomfort or insecurity. Closed arms, restless movements, and constant fidgeting can quietly signal nervousness or emotional defensiveness. On the other hand, relaxed posture, steady eye contact, calm facial expressions, and open body positioning create emotional comfort. People instinctively feel safer around individuals whose body language feels calm and grounded. Many people focus heavily on what to say socially, while ignoring the emotional signals their body sends constantly. Yet social attraction is deeply connected to how others feel around your energy, not only your words. A person may speak kindly, but if their body language feels tense, distracted, or emotionally closed off, people will sense the inconsistency immediately. Olivia Turner struggled with this for years without realizing it. She was a law student living in Boston, intelligent and thoughtful but socially misunderstood in many situations. During group discussions, networking events, and even casual conversations, people often described her as distant or intimidating. This confused her deeply because internally she wanted connection and friendship. Over time, Olivia started noticing a pattern. During conversations, she crossed her arms tightly without thinking. Her shoulders stayed tense. She rarely maintained eye contact for long because nervousness made her uncomfortable. In social settings, she often stood slightly apart from groups physically, even when she wanted to participate emotionally. None of these behaviors were intentional, but together they created emotional distance. One afternoon after class, another student named Claire invited Olivia for coffee. During their conversation, Claire gently mentioned something that surprised her. She said, "You're actually really warm once people talk to you. At first, though, you seem like you don't want anyone near you." That sentence stayed in Olivia's mind for days because she realized her body language was communicating the opposite of what she truly felt inside. Gradually, Olivia began paying attention to her physical presence during interactions. She practiced relaxing her shoulders before entering conversations. Instead of crossing her arms defensively, she kept her posture more open and natural. She worked on maintaining comfortable eye contact instead of constantly looking away when nervous. Most importantly, she focused less on protecting herself socially and more on emotionally engaging with the people around her. At first, these changes felt unnatural because her defensive body language had become automatic over many years, but slowly her social experiences began changing. People approached her more easily, conversations felt warmer, she noticed others responding more openly, because her physical presence no longer created emotional barriers unintentionally. This is one of the hidden truths about body language. People respond emotionally to your energy before they fully respond intellectually to your words. Trust is often built non-verbally first. Calm body language signals emotional safety. When your movements feel relaxed and grounded, people subconsciously feel less tension around you. Your presence becomes easier to connect with because it no longer communicates anxiety, defensiveness, or emotional pressure. Eye contact plays an especially important role in social attraction. Genuine eye contact communicates attention, confidence, and emotional presence. Avoiding it constantly can unintentionally create emotional distance because people may interpret it as discomfort, dishonesty, or disinterest. At the same time, overly intense eye contact can feel aggressive. Emotionally intelligent presence finds balance, calm, natural connection, rather than forced performance. Posture also shapes social energy more than many realize. A person who constantly shrinks themselves physically often appears uncertain emotionally, even if they are highly intelligent internally. Standing with relaxed confidence changes not only how others perceive you, but how you experience yourself socially. This is why emotionally grounded people often appear naturally attractive even without trying very hard. Their bodies reflect inner calmness. They move without excessive tension. Their expressions feel genuine, rather than forced. They are comfortable occupying space without constantly apologizing for their presence. Body language cannot fully hide emotional truth for very long. This is why authentic confidence matters more than memorized techniques. Real warmth cannot be permanently faked through posture alone. The goal is not to perform perfect body language mechanically. The goal is to create inner calmness that naturally shapes the way you carry yourself. Because in the end, socially magnetic people rarely attract others through words alone. They attract others through the emotional experience of being around them. And your body quietly speaks that emotional language every moment you are in someone's presence. Chapter 7. Stop chasing approval and start respecting yourself. One of the fastest ways to lose your natural social power is constantly needing everyone to like you. Approval seeking may appear harmless on the surface, but emotionally it creates tension, insecurity, and exhaustion. A person who constantly shapes their behavior around acceptance slowly loses connection with their authentic personality. Conversations become filtered, opinions become carefully adjusted, boundaries disappear. Over time, life begins feeling emotionally unstable because self-worth depends too heavily on how other people respond. The desire to be liked is natural. Human beings are social by nature, and connection matters deeply. But problems begin when acceptance becomes emotionally necessary, instead of emotionally appreciated. At that point, fear starts controlling behavior. Fear of rejection, fear of disagreement, fear of disappointing others. Many people spend years trying to avoid these feelings by constantly pleasing everyone around them. Ironically, this behavior often weakens attraction instead of strengthening it. People may appreciate kindness, but they rarely feel deeply drawn towards someone who abandons themselves to gain approval. Emotional dependence creates pressure. Calm self-respect, however, creates strength. Caleb Foster understood this struggle deeply. He was a marketing assistant living in Phoenix, intelligent and thoughtful, but constantly anxious about how people perceived him. At work, he agreed with opinions he did not actually believe because he feared conflict. In friendships, he constantly overextended himself to avoid disappointing others. During conversations, he laughed at jokes he did not find funny and apologized excessively even when unnecessary. Socially, Caleb seemed easygoing and agreeable. Internally, however, he felt emotionally exhausted. Every interaction felt like a performance designed to maintain approval. If someone responded coldly or seemed distant, his mind replayed the situation for hours. Small signs of rejection affected him deeply, because much of his self-worth depended on external acceptance. One weekend, Caleb attended a small gathering, hosted by co-workers. Throughout the evening, he noticed another guest named Daniel, who carried himself very differently. Daniel was respectful, calm, and friendly, but he did not seem desperate to gain approval from everyone in the room. He expressed opinions honestly, without becoming aggressive. He laughed naturally, instead of forcing reactions. He listened carefully, but he also remained comfortable disagreeing occasionally without panic. What stood out most was how relaxed he appeared socially. People respected him not because he tried to please everyone, but because he seemed comfortable being himself. That observation unsettled Caleb because he realized how emotionally dependent he had become on approval. He had spent years trying so hard to avoid rejection that he no longer knew how to fully express his real thoughts, preferences, or personality around people. Gradually, Caleb began making small changes. During conversations, he stopped automatically agreeing with everyone, simply to maintain comfort. He practiced expressing honest opinions respectfully, even when others might disagree. He stopped apologizing constantly for things that required no apology. Most importantly, he began paying attention to his own emotional needs instead of always placing everyone else's comfort above his own. At first, this felt uncomfortable because approval had always felt emotionally tied to safety. Whenever someone disagreed with him, anxiety immediately appeared. But over time, something powerful began happening. His confidence grew stronger internally, because it was no longer entirely controlled by external reactions. This is one of the hidden foundations of social attraction. Emotionally grounded people do not abandon themselves to be accepted. People naturally trust and respect individuals who carry quiet self-respect. This does not mean becoming arrogant, selfish, or emotionally cold. In fact, truly confident people are often kind and emotionally generous. The difference is that their kindness comes from genuine character, not fear of rejection. Approval seeking often creates invisible emotional pressure during conversations. People sense when someone desperately wants validation, and subconsciously it can feel draining. But emotionally secure individuals create a different experience. They are present, open, and respectful, without needing constant reassurance in return. Self-respect also strengthens boundaries. A person who values themselves no longer tolerates disrespect, simply to avoid losing approval. They become more selective about relationships, conversations, and environments, because they understand their emotional well-being matters too. This changes social energy completely. Instead of entering interactions hoping desperately to be accepted, you begin entering them as someone already comfortable with your own worth. That emotional shift feels powerful because it removes pressure. You no longer chase connection anxiously. You allow connection to develop naturally. The truth is simple but important. Not everyone will like you, no matter how carefully you behave. Personalities differ, values differ, preferences differ. Trying to satisfy everyone eventually destroys authenticity, because it forces a person to constantly shape-shift emotionally, depending on the environment. Social magnetism grows stronger when a person becomes emotionally free enough to remain genuine, even when approval is uncertain, because people are far more drawn toward calm authenticity than desperate perfection. And the moment you stop needing everyone to validate your worth, your presence begins carrying a completely different kind of confidence. Chapter 8. Create conversations that leave lasting impressions. Many conversations are quickly forgotten because they never move beyond the surface. People exchange information, repeat predictable questions, and speak without real emotional presence. The interaction ends politely, but nothing meaningful remains afterward. Yet every once in a while, you meet someone whose conversations stay in your mind long after they are over. Not necessarily because they said something brilliant, but because the interaction felt emotionally alive. Socially magnetic people understand that memorable conversations are not built through constant talking or trying to sound impressive. They are built through emotional engagement, curiosity, presence, energy, meaning. People remember conversations that make them feel something. Many individuals mistakenly believe charisma comes from having endless stories or entertaining everyone constantly. In reality, strong connection often comes from creating emotional depth in ordinary conversations. It is not always about saying extraordinary things. It is about making people feel fully involved in the moment. Sophia Reed struggled with this for years. She owned a small bookstore in Portland and genuinely loved people, literature, and meaningful ideas. But socially, she often felt forgettable. Conversations stayed polite but shallow. Networking events exhausted her because interactions felt repetitive and emotionally empty. People rarely seemed deeply engaged when speaking with her, and afterward she often replayed conversations wondering why connection felt so difficult. At first, Sophia assumed she simply lacked social charisma, but over time, she noticed something important about certain people she admired socially. Their conversations felt emotionally different. They asked thoughtful questions. They paid attention carefully. They spoke with curiosity instead of performance. Most importantly, they created emotional involvement instead of just exchanging information mechanically. One evening, a regular customer named Henry stayed in the bookstore long after closing time, discussing books, childhood memories, relationships, and life experiences with Sophia. The conversation lasted nearly 2 hours, but it never felt forced or draining. Later that night, Sophia realized why the interaction felt so memorable. Neither of them had been trying to impress the other. They had simply been fully engaged emotionally. That experience changed the way she approached communication. Instead of relying on automatic small talk, Sophia began slowing down during conversations. She asked questions that invited people to share feelings, experiences, and perspectives instead of only facts. Rather than immediately shifting attention back toward herself, she stayed curious about what others were revealing emotionally. Gradually, conversations began changing. People opened up to her more naturally. Interactions lasted longer because emotional connection replaced social performance. Customers returned not only because they loved books, but because they enjoyed how conversations felt around her. This is one of the hidden secrets of social attraction. Emotionally engaging conversations create emotional memory. People rarely remember every detail of what was said. They remember how the interaction made them feel internally. Did they feel rushed or relaxed, judged or understood, invisible or genuinely interesting? Emotional experience shapes social connection more deeply than perfect words ever could. Questions play a major role in this process. Surface-level questions usually create surface-level interactions, but thoughtful questions invite emotional depth. Instead of only asking what someone does for work, socially magnetic people often become curious about why people care about certain things, what excites them, what shaped them, or what they value deeply. Storytelling also creates stronger connection, because stories allow people to feel emotionally involved instead of simply processing information. Human beings naturally connect through emotion, imagery, and shared experiences. A calm personal story often creates more warmth than endless facts or achievements. Others become overly interview-like and never reveal anything personal. Strong connection happens when emotional energy flows naturally both ways. Presence matters deeply here too. A distracted person rarely creates memorable interactions because emotional engagement requires attention. People can feel when someone is mentally elsewhere, checking phones, scanning rooms, or preparing responses constantly, but focused attention makes conversations feel valuable. Humor, warmth, vulnerability, curiosity, and sincerity all strengthen emotional connection because they create authenticity. Perfect conversations are not necessary. Human conversations are. Sometimes small imperfections, genuine laughter, or honest moments create the strongest impressions of all. Someone people remember because they felt emotionally awake around you instead of emotionally drained or overlooked. The truth is simple. Human beings crave connection far more than performance, and when conversations begin touching something real emotionally, people naturally want more of your presence in their lives. Chapter 9. Protect your energy from toxic people. The people surrounding you influence your emotional state more than you may realize. Their attitudes, behaviors, communication styles, and emotional habits quietly shape your thinking over time. Spend enough time around negativity, criticism, manipulation, constant drama, or emotional instability, and eventually your own energy begins changing too. This is why protecting your emotional environment is one of the most important parts of becoming socially confident and emotionally grounded. Many people underestimate how deeply toxic relationships affect their self-worth. They assume emotional exhaustion is simply stress or overthinking, when in reality they are constantly absorbing unhealthy energy from the people closest to them. Some individuals drain attention endlessly, others criticize constantly, compete emotionally, manipulate through guilt, or create chaos everywhere they go. Over time, these relationships slowly weaken confidence because the nervous system never fully relaxes around them. Social attraction is not only about how you communicate with people, it is also about the emotional environment you allow around yourself. Calm, emotionally healthy people naturally become more magnetic because their energy feels balanced and safe. But when someone spends years trapped in unhealthy social circles, their confidence often becomes tense, defensive, or emotionally drained without them fully understanding why. Jordan Mitchell experienced this during one of the hardest periods of his life. He was a software consultant living in San Diego, highly capable professionally, but increasingly insecure socially. For years, Jordan stayed connected to a group of friends he had known since college. At first, the friendships felt exciting and familiar, but over time, the dynamic changed. Conversations became filled with sarcasm, criticism, subtle competition, and constant negativity. Whenever Jordan shared goals or personal growth, someone mocked him jokingly. If he succeeded professionally, others downplayed it. Group gatherings often left him emotionally exhausted rather than energized. Yet he continued staying connected because he feared loneliness and believed long history automatically meant healthy friendship. Gradually, Jordan noticed changes in himself. His confidence weakened. He second-guessed decisions constantly. Even his communication became more defensive because he had grown used to criticism and emotional tension. Deep down, he felt emotionally drained, but he kept convincing himself he was simply being too sensitive. One evening after meeting friends for dinner, Jordan drove home feeling unusually heavy emotionally. The entire night had been filled with negativity, complaints, gossip, and subtle insults disguised as humor. Sitting alone in his apartment afterward, he realized something painful. He spent more time recovering from these relationships than enjoying them. That realization changed the way he viewed connection completely. Slowly, Jordan began creating healthier boundaries. He stopped attending every gathering automatically. He reduced time spent in conversations that constantly drained him emotionally. Instead, he focused more on relationships that felt supportive, calm, and respectful. At first, this felt uncomfortable because distancing yourself from familiar people often creates guilt, but over time, something remarkable happened. His confidence slowly returned. His thinking became clearer. Conversations felt lighter because he no longer constantly defended himself emotionally. This is one of the hidden truths about emotional energy. The people around you shape the emotional atmosphere inside your mind. Toxic individuals often create confusion because they are not always openly cruel. Some simply carry chronic negativity that spreads into every interaction. Others constantly seek emotional attention through drama and conflict. Some subtly weaken others through criticism, insecurity, or manipulation. The damage usually happens gradually, making it difficult to recognize at first. Emotionally healthy relationships feel different. They create encouragement instead of constant tension, honest communication instead of manipulation, respect instead of emotional games. After spending time with emotionally grounded people, you often feel calmer, clearer, and more energized rather than emotionally exhausted. Protecting your energy does not mean becoming cold or avoiding difficult people completely. Life will always involve challenging personalities. Emotional maturity still requires patience, compassion, and understanding. But socially confident people understand the importance of boundaries. They do not allow constant negativity, unlimited access to their emotional space. This is especially important because emotional states spread socially. Confidence grows stronger around supportive environments. Anxiety grows heavier around constant chaos. Human beings unconsciously absorb emotional patterns from those they spend time with most. Your emotional environment affects your body language, communication, mindset, and overall presence. A person constantly surrounded by criticism often becomes guarded socially. Someone surrounded by emotional stability usually becomes calmer and more confident naturally. One of the strongest forms of self-respect is recognizing when certain relationships consistently damage your peace. Sometimes growth requires creating distance from environments that no longer align with the person you are becoming. Social magnetism is not built only through techniques or communication skills. It also grows through emotional health. People are naturally drawn toward individuals who carry calm, grounded, and emotionally balanced energy, but maintaining that energy requires protecting it carefully. Because the truth is simple, the more emotionally healthy your environment becomes, the stronger, calmer, and more attractive your presence naturally becomes too. Chapter 10. Become more interesting by staying curious. One of the most attractive qualities a person can possess is genuine curiosity. Curious people carry a certain energy that makes conversations feel alive. They are interested in ideas, experiences, perspectives, and people themselves. Their minds stay open instead of emotionally stagnant. This creates natural charisma because curiosity brings freshness into communication, relationships, and personal growth. Many individuals mistakenly believe being interesting means constantly entertaining others or having an extraordinary life story. But socially magnetic people are often attractive for a simpler reason. They are deeply engaged with life. They ask thoughtful questions. They notice details. They explore new ideas. They remain mentally alive instead of emotionally repetitive. A closed mind creates repetitive energy. When someone loses curiosity, conversations often become predictable and emotionally flat. They talk about the same complaints, same routines, same opinions, and same frustrations endlessly. Over time, this creates social dullness because the person stops growing internally. Human beings naturally feel drawn toward emotional and intellectual energy that feels expansive rather than stagnant. She was a financial advisor living in Atlanta, successful professionally, but increasingly insecure during conversations outside of work. Whenever she attended social events, she often felt boring compared to others. People around her seemed more engaging, more knowledgeable, and more socially confident.
At first, Madeline blamed personality. She assumed she simply lacked charisma naturally, but over time she noticed something interesting about socially attractive individuals. They were not always the loudest or funniest people. Many were simply deeply curious. They asked engaging questions. They explored different topics comfortably. Their attention carried energy because they genuinely wanted to learn about people and the world around them.
One evening during a dinner party, Madeline spoke with an older photographer named Samuel, who completely changed her perspective. Samuel had traveled extensively, but what made him fascinating was not only his experiences, it was the way he spoke about life with curiosity and emotional openness. He asked thoughtful questions, listened deeply, and became genuinely excited discussing ordinary subjects many people overlooked. Driving home later that night, Madeline realized something uncomfortable. She had spent years trapped inside routine. Her world had become emotionally narrow. Work consumed most of her attention, and outside of that, she rarely explored new interests, perspectives, or experiences anymore. She had slowly stopped feeding her own curiosity. That realization changed the way she approached life. Gradually, Madeline started exploring subjects she had ignored for years. She read books outside her profession. She attended local art events, listened to different kinds of people, and became more interested in understanding human experiences rather than simply talking about herself. During conversations, she focused less on appearing interesting and more on becoming genuinely interested. Something surprising happened as a result. Conversations became easier. She no longer felt pressure to constantly impress people because curiosity naturally created engagement. Others responded warmly to her because they felt her attention and enthusiasm. Social confidence grew naturally because she no longer approached conversations as performances to survive. Curiosity creates warmth because it pulls attention outward instead of trapping it inside insecurity. An insecure mind constantly monitors itself during interactions. A curious mind becomes fascinated by the world around it. That emotional shift changes social energy completely. Interesting people are often simply engaged people. They remain mentally flexible. They ask questions without pretending to already know everything. They allow themselves to learn from different perspectives instead of defending rigid opinions constantly. This openness makes conversations feel dynamic and emotionally refreshing. Curiosity also deepens confidence because growth creates substance. A person who continuously explores life develops broader understanding, stronger perspective, and greater emotional depth over time. This naturally strengthens communication because their mind carries more experiences, ideas, and emotional awareness into conversations. Social attraction is rarely sustained through appearance alone. Physical attraction may gain initial attention, but emotional and intellectual energy maintain connection. Curious individuals remain engaging because they continue evolving internally, instead of becoming emotionally repetitive. This does not mean forcing yourself to become an expert on endless topics. Genuine curiosity feels natural, not performative. It grows through paying attention to life more deeply, asking better questions, exploring unfamiliar experiences, remaining open instead of emotionally closed off. People can feel when someone is mentally alive. It changes the energy of every conversation. Curious people create movement emotionally because they invite exploration, perspective, and connection naturally. One of the easiest ways to become more socially magnetic is surprisingly simple. Become more fascinated with life itself. Notice people more carefully. Learn continuously. Stay emotionally open to new experiences and perspectives. Because the more curious you become about the world, the more interesting your presence naturally becomes within it. Chapter 11. Make people feel safe in your presence. One of the most powerful forms of attraction has very little to do with appearance, status, or charm. It comes from emotional safety. Human beings naturally move closer to people who make them feel relaxed, accepted, and emotionally secure. In a world filled with judgment, pressure, competition, and emotional unpredictability, calm and trustworthy energy becomes incredibly attractive. Many people underestimate this completely. They believe social magnetism comes from impressing others, entertaining constantly, or dominating attention. But deep connection is usually built on something quieter: trust, warmth, consistency, emotional stability. People are drawn toward those who allow them to lower their guard instead of constantly feeling evaluated. This is why certain individuals instantly make others feel comfortable. Conversations flow naturally around them. People open up emotionally faster. Their presence feels grounding instead of stressful. These individuals rarely create emotional pressure because they are not constantly judging, competing, or trying to control interactions. Their energy feels safe. Logan Parker did not realize how important this was until he nearly lost several relationships because of the emotional atmosphere he unintentionally created. He owned a successful restaurant in Nashville and carried himself with strong discipline and intensity. Professionally, these qualities helped him succeed. Personally, however, they created problems he struggled to understand. People often described Logan as intimidating. Employees became nervous around him. Friends hesitated to share personal struggles openly. Even during casual conversations, others sometimes appeared tense in his presence. This confused him because he never intended to make people uncomfortable. Internally, he cared deeply about those around him. Over time, Logan started noticing certain habits in himself. He interrupted quickly when people spoke slowly. He corrected details unnecessarily during conversations. His facial expressions often remained serious even when relaxed. When someone made a mistake, his reactions carried emotional sharpness without him fully realizing it. None of this came from cruelty. It came from years of living in high-pressure environments where control and intensity had become normal. One evening, his younger sister finally confronted him honestly during dinner. She calmly said, "You don't realize how tense people feel around you sometimes. It always feels like you're evaluating everyone." That sentence hit him hard because deep down he knew there was truth in it. For the first time, Logan began paying attention not only to his intentions but to the emotional experience people had around him. He realized that social attraction is not only about what you mean internally, it is also about the emotional atmosphere you create externally. Slowly, he started making changes. During conversations, he practiced softening his tone instead of speaking with constant intensity. He listened more patiently without interrupting. He became more aware of his facial expressions, body language, and emotional reactions. Most importantly, he stopped treating every interaction like something that needed control or correction. At first, this felt unnatural because emotional sharpness had become automatic for him. But over time, something powerful happened. Relationships became warmer. Employees approached him more openly. Friends relaxed around him. Conversations felt emotionally lighter, because people no longer felt subconsciously judged or pressured in his presence. This is one of the hidden foundations of human connection. People are drawn toward emotional safety. Emotional safety means someone feels accepted around you, instead of constantly analyzed. It means they feel heard without fear of humiliation or harsh judgment. It means your presence allows them to breathe emotionally, instead of becoming tense or defensive. Socially magnetic people often carry calm emotional energy. They do not overreact constantly. They do not make every conversation feel like competition. They create warmth through patience, empathy, and emotional steadiness. As a result, people naturally trust them more deeply. This does not mean becoming passive or avoiding honesty. Emotionally safe people can still be direct, confident, and truthful. The difference is emotional delivery. Their communication does not feel threatening or emotionally unstable. Even difficult conversations feel calmer around them because their energy remains grounded. Many individuals unknowingly push people away through emotional unpredictability. One moment they are warm, the next they become critical, reactive, or emotionally harsh. Over time, others begin protecting themselves around that inconsistency. But emotional stability creates trust because people know what emotional environment to expect around you. This is why calmness matters so much socially. A calm person makes others feel safer emotionally. Safety creates openness. Openness creates connection, and connection creates attraction naturally. People may initially notice appearance, confidence, or charisma, but long-term connection is usually built through emotional experience. How someone feels around you determines whether they want more of your presence in their life. They want to feel accepted instead of constantly performing, understood instead of judged, safe instead of tense. And when your presence consistently gives people that feeling, your social influence becomes far more powerful than you may ever realize. Chapter 12. Control your emotions before they damage your relationships. Emotions are powerful. They shape the tone of conversations, the quality of relationships, and the way people experience your presence. A person may have intelligence, confidence, and strong communication skills, but if they cannot manage their emotions under pressure, their relationships eventually become unstable. Social attraction is deeply connected to emotional control, because emotionally grounded people create trust, while emotionally reactive people often create tension. Many relationships are damaged not by major betrayals, but by repeated emotional reactions, impulsive words spoken in anger, defensive behavior during disagreement, harsh tones during stressful moments, emotional outbursts that leave others feeling unsafe or exhausted. Over time, even small reactions begin shaping how people feel around someone. They become cautious, guarded, or emotionally distant because they no longer know what emotional atmosphere to expect. Emotionally reactive people often believe they are simply being honest or expressing themselves, but emotional honesty without emotional control can easily become emotional chaos. Calmness, on the other hand, creates strength because it allows a person to respond intentionally instead of reacting impulsively. Emma Sullivan learned this lesson during one of the most difficult periods of her professional and personal life. She worked as a public relations specialist in Los Angeles, a fast-moving career filled with deadlines, pressure, and constant communication. Emma was intelligent, ambitious, and socially outgoing, but emotionally she struggled with impatience and reactivity. Whenever stress increased, her emotions immediately controlled her communication. Small frustrations became sharp responses. Disagreements escalated quickly because she reacted defensively instead of listening calmly. During arguments, she often spoke impulsively and regretted her words later. Although she apologized afterward, the emotional damage slowly accumulated in her relationships. At first, Emma blamed stress and other people's behavior, but eventually she noticed a painful pattern. The same emotional reactions followed her into friendships, romantic relationships, and work situations repeatedly. People often described her as intense or emotionally unpredictable. Deep down, she knew they were not entirely wrong. One evening after a heated argument with her closest friend, Emma sat alone replaying the conversation in her mind. She realized something difficult. Her emotions were not simply expressing her feelings anymore, they were controlling her behavior, and the people around her were beginning to emotionally protect themselves from her reactions. She noticed how quickly her body reacted during stress. Her breathing became shallow, her voice sharpened, her mind immediately searched for defense instead of understanding. For the first time, she realized emotional reactions often happened before she consciously thought about them. Instead of trying to suppress emotions completely, Emma started practicing emotional pause. When conversations became tense, she slowed down intentionally before responding. She focused on breathing calmly, instead of reacting immediately. During disagreements, she forced herself to listen fully before defending herself. At first, this felt incredibly uncomfortable because emotional reactions had become automatic. But gradually, something remarkable happened. Her relationships became calmer. Conversations no longer escalated as quickly. People opened up to her more honestly because they no longer feared emotional explosions or defensive reactions. This is one of the hidden foundations of social attraction. Emotional stability creates emotional trust. People feel safer around individuals who remain calm during stressful moments. Emotional control signals maturity because it shows a person can manage discomfort without losing control of themselves. This does not mean becoming emotionless or cold. Healthy emotions are important. Passion, honesty, vulnerability, and emotional openness all strengthen human connection. The key difference is whether emotions are being expressed consciously or impulsively. Emotionally grounded people still feel anger, disappointment, frustration, and hurt, but they do not allow those emotions to immediately control their behavior. They create space between feeling and reaction. That space changes everything. Social confidence becomes far stronger when emotions stop controlling communication. A calm person listens more clearly, thinks more clearly, responds more wisely. Even during disagreement, they remain emotionally steady enough to preserve respect and connection. Many people underestimate how attractive emotional maturity truly is. Physical appearance may create initial attraction, but emotional stability creates lasting trust. People naturally move closer to those who make difficult situations feel calmer, rather than more chaotic. This is especially important because life constantly creates emotional pressure. Misunderstandings happen, criticism happens, stress happens. A person who depends entirely on emotional reactions will constantly damage relationships without intending to. But someone who learns emotional control creates a very different experience around them. Calmness under pressure creates respect. Patience creates trust. Emotional balance creates safety. And over time, people begin associating your presence with emotional steadiness instead of emotional unpredictability. That kind of energy becomes deeply attractive because it feels rare in a world where many people are constantly reacting without control. The truth is simple. Your emotions are not the problem. The problem begins when your emotions become stronger than your awareness. Because the strongest people are not those who never feel emotional intensity. They are the ones who remain in control of themselves even when emotions rise. Chapter 13. Bring energy that people want to be around. Every person carries emotional energy into a room. Some people create calmness, encouragement, and warmth without even trying very hard. Others unknowingly spread stress, negativity, tension, or emotional heaviness wherever they go. Human beings are deeply affected by emotional atmosphere, which is why certain people naturally attract connection while others quietly push people away despite good intentions. It is emotional influence. Your attitude, tone, emotional habits, reactions, and overall mindset shape how people feel around you. This is why social attraction goes far beyond appearance or communication techniques. People remember emotional experience. They remember whether your presence made them feel lighter or heavier emotionally. Negative energy often develops gradually without someone fully noticing it. Constant complaining, cynicism, irritability, gossip, emotional pessimism, chronic frustration. Over time, these patterns become part of a person's social presence. Even if they are intelligent or funny, others slowly begin feeling emotionally drained around them because every interaction carries heaviness. Brandon Ellis experienced this without understanding what was happening. He was a high school teacher living in Dallas, dedicated to his students and hard-working by nature. But after years of stress, disappointment, and burnout, his emotional energy had slowly changed. Conversations with friends often centered around frustration. At work, he constantly criticized leadership decisions. Small inconveniences triggered irritation quickly. Even during casual interactions, sarcasm and negativity had become automatic habits. He often told himself he was telling the truth, while others were pretending to be positive. But gradually, he noticed something painful. Friends stopped reaching out as often. Co-workers interacted politely, but rarely stayed around him long. Even his students responded differently to him emotionally. One afternoon after school, another teacher named Michelle stayed behind to talk with him privately. During the conversation, she gently said something that stayed in his mind for weeks. She told him, "You're a good person, Brandon, but lately it feels like everything around you becomes heavy." That sentence unsettled him deeply because part of him already knew it was true. For the first time, Brandon began paying attention to the emotional atmosphere he created around others. He noticed how quickly he focused conversations toward negativity. He realized he rarely expressed gratitude anymore. Even positive situations often became opportunities to complain or criticize eventually. Slowly, Brandon started changing small habits. He stopped feeding every negative thought verbally. He practiced gratitude intentionally, even during stressful days. Instead of constantly focusing conversations on problems, he became more aware of balance. He still remained honest about difficulties, but he no longer allowed negativity to dominate every interaction automatically. At first, this felt unnatural because his mind had become conditioned toward frustration. But gradually, something powerful changed. Conversations became lighter. People relaxed around him more easily. His students responded with greater warmth and engagement because his emotional energy no longer carried constant tension. Positive energy does not mean fake happiness or pretending life is perfect. In fact, forced positivity often feels emotionally dishonest. Genuine positive energy comes from emotional balance. It comes from carrying hope, gratitude, calmness, humor, and emotional resilience even while acknowledging life's difficulties honestly. People who constantly spread negativity often do not realize the emotional effect they create around others. Human beings absorb emotional energy socially, spend enough time around chronic negativity, and the nervous system begins feeling emotionally tired. But spending time around emotionally uplifting people often creates the opposite effect. You feel calmer, lighter, more hopeful, and more emotionally open afterward. This is why gratitude matters socially. Grateful people usually carry warmer emotional energy because their attention is not constantly trapped in frustration, comparison, or resentment. They notice good moments more naturally. Their conversations feel more balanced emotionally. As a result, people often enjoy being around them without fully understanding why. Humor also plays a powerful role here. Warm, genuine humor creates connection because it relaxes emotional tension. Socially magnetic individuals often know how to create lightness naturally without humiliating others or seeking attention desperately. Energy becomes especially important during difficult situations. Anyone can appear pleasant when life feels easy, but emotionally grounded people maintain steadiness even during stress. Their presence still feels safe and encouraging instead of emotionally chaotic. This creates trust because others know they will not constantly spread panic, bitterness, or emotional instability. Your emotional habits shape your social atmosphere every day. Complaining constantly creates one atmosphere. Gratitude creates another. Cynicism creates one atmosphere. Curiosity and hope create another. People may initially notice appearance, confidence, or communication skills, but emotional energy determines whether they genuinely want your presence in their lives long term. The truth is simple. Human beings naturally move toward people who make life feel emotionally lighter instead of emotionally heavier. And when your presence consistently brings calmness, warmth, encouragement, and emotional balance into the lives of others, you become someone people naturally want to be around again and again. Chapter 14. Stop hiding your real personality. One of the most exhausting ways to live is constantly pretending to be someone else. Many people spend years adjusting their personality depending on who they are around. They hide opinions, suppress natural behavior, soften parts of themselves, or carefully perform versions of who they think others will accept. Over time, this creates emotional disconnection because a person slowly loses touch with their authentic self. The fear behind this behavior is deeply human. People want acceptance, they want connection, they want to belong, so they begin shaping themselves around social expectations, hoping it will make relationships easier. At first, this may create temporary approval, but eventually something important begins disappearing: emotional freedom. Authenticity is one of the strongest forms of social attraction because genuine people feel emotionally real. Their behavior feels natural instead of calculated. Their conversations feel relaxed instead of overly controlled. People trust authenticity because it creates consistency. You know who the person is around you because they are not constantly changing themselves for approval. Hannah Brooks understood the exhaustion of hiding herself very well. She was a graphic designer living in Minneapolis, creative, thoughtful, and naturally humorous, but socially she often felt disconnected from others. Throughout her life, she had learned to carefully adjust her personality depending on the environment around her. Around highly confident people, she became quieter and more reserved. In professional settings, she suppressed her playful side because she feared not being taken seriously. Around certain friends, she pretended to enjoy things she did not actually care about simply to fit in. Over time, Hannah became so focused on maintaining social comfort that she rarely expressed her genuine thoughts naturally anymore. People generally liked her, yet she still felt strangely lonely. Deep down, she sensed an uncomfortable truth. Most people did not actually know the real version of her because she rarely allowed that version to fully appear. One evening during a small dinner gathering, Hannah met an older musician named Caroline. Throughout the evening, Caroline spoke openly, laughed freely, and carried herself with effortless authenticity. She did not appear concerned with performing perfectly or controlling how everyone perceived her constantly. Her confidence felt relaxed and emotionally free. What struck Hannah most was how naturally people responded to her. The room felt calmer around her because she was not trying to become someone else socially. She seemed fully comfortable occupying her own personality without apology. Later that night, Hannah realized how emotionally exhausting her own social behavior had become. She spent so much energy managing impressions that she rarely felt fully relaxed around people anymore. That realization changed her deeply. Gradually, Hannah began allowing more honesty into her interactions. She stopped pretending to enjoy conversations or activities solely to fit in. She expressed opinions more openly, instead of automatically agreeing with everyone. She allowed her humor and personality to appear naturally, instead of constantly filtering herself through fear of judgment. At first, this felt uncomfortable because authenticity always carries some risk. Not everyone responds positively when you stop shaping yourself around their expectations. Some people prefer the version of you that constantly adapts to make them comfortable. But over time, something powerful happened. Hannah felt emotionally lighter. Her confidence grew stronger because it no longer depended on maintaining endless social performance. Most importantly, her relationships became more genuine because people were finally connecting with the real version of her instead of a carefully edited version. People may initially admire polished performance, but genuine trust usually forms around emotional honesty. Authentic individuals feel emotionally easier to connect with because their energy is consistent. They are not constantly shape-shifting socially depending on the environment. This does not mean saying everything without filter or refusing personal growth. Emotional maturity still requires self-awareness, kindness, and respect for others. Authenticity is not about becoming careless or rude. It is about allowing your real personality, values, humor, emotions, and perspective to exist without constant fear-driven suppression. Many people hide themselves because they fear rejection. But ironically, hiding often creates emotional distance anyway. Relationships built entirely on performance rarely feel deeply fulfilling because part of the person always remains unseen. Socially magnetic people are often emotionally free people. They are comfortable enough with themselves to stop performing constantly for acceptance. Their energy feels relaxed because they are not spending every interaction carefully managing identity. Authenticity also creates confidence because honesty removes internal conflict. A person no longer needs to remember which version of themselves they presented to different people. Their social life becomes simpler because they stop carrying the emotional burden of constant performance. The truth is simple but powerful. People are not deeply drawn toward perfection. They are drawn toward emotional realness, toward warmth, honesty, vulnerability, humor, and genuine human presence. And the moment you stop hiding your real personality, your presence begins carrying a completely different kind of energy, lighter, freer, more relaxed, more alive. Because the strongest social connection happens when people feel they are finally meeting the real you. Chapter 15. Become the kind of person people naturally gravitate toward. Social attraction is often misunderstood. Many people spend years searching for techniques, tricks, or external changes they believe will finally make others like them more. They focus heavily on appearance, social strategies, clever conversation lines, or trying to seem impressive. While these things may create temporary attention, lasting connection comes from something much deeper. Real magnetism is not a performance, it is an identity. People naturally gravitate toward individuals whose presence feels emotionally grounded, calm confidence, genuine warmth, emotional stability, authentic communication, quiet self-respect. These qualities create attraction because they make others feel safe, valued, and emotionally comfortable. And unlike temporary social tricks, these qualities continue strengthening relationships over time instead of exhausting them. This is why truly magnetic people often do not appear desperate for attention. They are not constantly trying to prove themselves. Their confidence feels natural because it is rooted internally rather than dependent on external validation. They listen sincerely, communicate clearly, and carry emotional balance into relationships. As a result, people trust them more easily and feel emotionally drawn toward their energy. Throughout this journey, one truth has appeared again and again. Human beings remember emotional experience far more deeply than social performance. People remember how they felt around you. Did they feel judged or accepted, pressured or relaxed, invisible or genuinely valued, emotionally drained or emotionally lighter? These feelings shape attraction more powerfully than perfect words ever could. Becoming socially magnetic is not about becoming the loudest person in the room. In many cases, emotionally secure people become quieter because they no longer feel pressured to constantly seek approval or dominate attention. Their calmness creates presence. Their authenticity creates trust. Their emotional stability creates comfort. This is why confidence matters so deeply, but not the kind of confidence built on ego, superiority, or performance. Real confidence comes from emotional security. It grows when you stop depending entirely on validation from others to feel worthy. A person who respects themselves naturally carries stronger energy socially because they no longer interact from desperation or fear. At the same time, social attraction also grows through generosity. Generosity of attention, generosity of patience, generosity of emotional presence. People are naturally drawn toward those who make them feel important, understood, and emotionally safe. Deep listening, empathy, and curiosity create stronger connection than constant self-promotion ever will. This is especially important in modern life because genuine connection has become increasingly rare. Many people feel distracted, emotionally exhausted, or disconnected from one another. Conversations often remain surface level because people are too busy performing, defending themselves, or seeking approval to truly connect. But emotionally grounded individuals create a different experience. Their presence feels calming because they are fully there. Consistency also matters. A socially magnetic person does not constantly shift personalities depending on who they are around. Their energy remains stable because they are comfortable with themselves. Authenticity creates trust because people know the version of you they experience is real. No human being is universally accepted. Personalities, values, and preferences will always differ. Trying to gain approval from everyone only weakens authenticity and emotional freedom. Social confidence grows stronger when you accept this reality instead of fearing it constantly. The goal is not universal approval. The goal is meaningful connection. And meaningful connection happens when people experience honesty, emotional safety, warmth, confidence, and presence around you consistently. Over time, these qualities create something far more powerful than temporary popularity. They create trust, respect, emotional closeness, real influence. A truly magnetic person improves the emotional atmosphere around them. Their calmness reduces tension. Their attention makes others feel seen. Their emotional control creates stability. Their authenticity gives others permission to relax and be themselves too. This is why social attraction ultimately becomes a lifestyle. Rather than a collection of techniques, it is shaped through daily emotional habits, the way you speak, the way you listen, the way you handle pressure, the way you treat people when no social reward is guaranteed. The more emotionally grounded you become internally, the more naturally attractive your presence becomes externally, because in the end, people are not deeply drawn toward perfection. They are drawn toward emotional truth, toward confidence without arrogance, kindness without weakness, calmness without coldness, strength without performance. And when you become the kind of person who consistently brings trust, warmth, confidence, and emotional balance into the lives of others, people stop feeling like something you need to chase. They begin naturally gravitating toward you instead.